Welcome to Google's Iowa caucus election coverage. And Ben Smith, thanks for joining us. You are the incoming editor-in-chief at BuzzFeed. Spent time as a senior political reporter at Politico. You've also been a political columnist for the New York Daily News. You also started 3 of New York's leading political blogs. So you're heavily immersed in the politics world. Maybe you can just give us a bit of an understanding of your new role over at BuzzFeed and how that compares to what you've been doing at Politico.
Well, I mean, I guess I've been, writing and reporting, and I'm going to be and very focused on politics. BuzzFeed is going to hit the ground running on politics just because this month, January is such a great month for politics. It only comes once every 4 years. It's like leap year, I guess. And you don't want to miss it. So I'll be out in Iowa January 1st, and we have a team of 4 great young reporters, starting this month and starting next month covering politics, starting in January. But then we'll also be, broadening into a series of other non-political areas, tech, I would hope, among them, covering you guys, and yeah, really trying to write for the social web, which is really basically, I think, how most of us already are working. This isn't some futuristic thing, but just be very aware of that.
All right, great. Well, let's focus now on Iowa. I know it's tough to be a political prognosticator, but if you could predict who might pull ahead in the race there, who have you got your eye on?
Well, I think the story that's shaping up right now is just that, after these cycles and cycles and cycles of these media figments like Herman Cain and Donald Trump and Michelle Bachmann to some degree, Newt Gingrich, that the old rules and the old laws of gravity are sort of taking hold. I mean, the 3 people who have spent far more time in Iowa than anybody else over the last 6 years are, I would think in this order, Rick Santorum, Ron Paul, and Mitt Romney. And, that seems to be coming through. It's an old pattern, as these guys, that there's a frontrunner, Mitt Romney, who has a real base of support that seems to be pretty much kind of stuck in the 20s, not really going up, not really going down. There's Ron Paul, who has his own very specific base of support. Again, maybe has a ceiling, maybe has a floor too. And then there's there's a lot of Iowans who are undecided. You ask them the day after there's been a lot of attention to Newt Gingrich, they'll say, maybe Newt Gingrich. But they're very methodical. They're very thoughtful. I mean, they're not committing, and then you go out and talk to folks, and they're going to say, no, I haven't made up my mind yet, until the very last day, most of them. And as these other guys just beat the crap out of each other, there's one other candidate who has been very disciplined, but just kind of going around the state, meeting people, not worrying about getting into the daily fray, not worrying about the polls. This year, that's Santorum. And so a lot of Iowans, I think, are saying, I've learned all these bad things from negative television ads, by the way, about all these other guys, about Rick Perry, about Newt Gingrich, people I kind of thought I liked. Rick Santorum, he's solid. I like him. I actually know him. I met him a couple of times. I was talking to the chairman of Lyon County, which is in the far northwest corner of the state. Santorum's been there a few times. He's had a lot of trouble getting people to show up there this year. So, so they're starting, I think a lot of them, voters are starting to say, Rick Santorum, I like him. He's a good guy. I've met him. I'll go with him. I mean, Santorum is somebody who's going to have a lot of trouble beyond Iowa. He's sort of built to be a candidate who wins Iowa and nowhere else. Doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have any organization anywhere else, is overtly religious in a way that is going to turn off New Hampshire voters. Iowa is a very religious Republican primary. New Hampshire, I think, has the lowest church attendance in the country. So very different state. And so then it's going to, he's, somebody emailed me today, Santorum's the only guy who could possibly lose South Carolina to Mitt Romney. So he's basically, Romney could not have scripted this whole thing better, basically.
So it could be key to winning Iowa, but not necessary in terms of getting the nomination. We see people who win Iowa who don't go on to win the nomination.
But Iowa always matters. I mean, that's the thing. It's, you can't necessarily win in Iowa. You can definitely lose in Iowa. It's a place where there's an opportunity for somebody to be the favorite of social conservatives. Look forward to South Carolina. Look forward to the big but not majorities of Republican Party or social conservative voters all around the country. And it would be a place to gather momentum to start that surge. They talk about how many tickets there are out of Iowa. Assuming Mitt Romney and Ron Paul are in the first 3, there's probably only one more.
Well, let's get into some specifics because while at Politico you talked about these three consultants working for Mitt Romney's campaign who you say didn't exactly get along with each other. There was some tension among them. They've got these opposing points of view. Do you think that that benefited Romney to give him sort of a difference of opinion, or could it hurt him in the long run?
I think no. I think it's just something about Romney's world right now. The adjustment there that he in his three campaigns, basically his run for governor, his run for governor, and then his run for president last time, and his run for president this time. He's sort of fallen under the spell, as politicians tend to, of three different gurus. This overstates it, in fact, because Romney, more than other politicians, is his own manager. Is very focused on the details of a campaign. Is very in the weeds. But also, they're three of kind of the great ad men of their generation. A guy named Mike Murphy, a guy named Alex Castellanos, and a guy named Stu Stevens. And yeah, they kind of hate each other. And there's a level of, everybody wants to make a president, right? And so there's a level of kind of sniping. And they also the Castellanos and Murphy think that Romney made a huge mistake in running this sort of cautious frontrunner campaign. That even if he wins, he'll have missed the opportunity to define himself, and that he'll get chewed up in the general election. At the moment, though, Stu Stevens is one of the folks who's with him now who did decide that they should run a very tight, low-key campaign. And right now, that decision's looking pretty good.
So it helps to add some diversity to the people around you. It turns out.
Well, it's not, the other two aren't really around him. It's more like going through different gurus and discarding one and moving on to the next one. I think part of it is that as Romney has grown more confident, and there's nothing like running and losing a presidential campaign to sort of figure out how it works. And I think he's increasingly, and there's sort of a circle of staff around him who are also more confident, making a lot of decisions.
All right. Well, speaking of how to run a campaign, you and Maggie Haberman talked about the similarities between Romney's campaign and Hillary Clinton's campaign, her failed campaign for the nomination. Do you see that these differences might affect how Romney could succeed? What does he draw from Hillary Clinton's campaign? What do you see between those relationships that affect the outcome for him?
Well, that when we wrote that story, there was a moment a couple of weeks ago when Gingrich was really surging, and it seemed like people were really turning to him, and it felt a lot like the Clinton 2008 campaign in the sense that she had also run a very kind of cautious, limited front-runner campaign. She'd been into Iowa a bit, but allowed other people to really go to live in Iowa and dig in deep roots. And there was a moment of panic in December, mid-December of 2007, when she suddenly had her daughter and her mother out in the campaign trail with her, which was totally unheard of in her world. It was totally off limits to even ask questions about Chelsea for years and years, and suddenly she's on the campaign trail. And suddenly, just panicked and realized she had to be all into Iowa and was all into Iowa. And these were real, reversals. There was a sense that somebody had flipped a switch or pulled a cord. And there was a moment this month when Mitt Romney seemed a little on the rocks and he started talking more about his religion. This is something he'd never done before. And although people around him had always said, you get painted as this stiff, but actually, as a lay leader in the Mormon church, you're somebody people came to with problems involving money, problems involving their marriages, problems with their kids, these very gritty, real problems. And you should be telling stories about, so-and-so came to me and we talked about, his kid had run away or whatever, And Romney, I think partly because the idea that Mormonism was going to be an issue, partly out of a reflexive not wanting to he has a complicated relationship with his faith in public life, which is totally understandable. Had not wanted to, and that just ended very abruptly a couple of weeks ago, and he just started talking about it. And he also started realizing that there was no way to do Iowa halfway, that he was really committed, and he dove in. There's no Barack Obama this is the difference from 2008. Obama, unlike Newt Gingrich, unlike any of these guys, had not just organized in Iowa, he was organized way downfield in Idaho and in California and in Connecticut, and was ready both to steal Iowa from Clinton, but then to fight her for months and months down the road, had the money, had the organization. And there's, with the kind of limited exception of Ron Paul, there's no Obama in there, and Hillary, if Newt Gingrich had been, if the Democratic equivalent of Newt Gingrich had been had won Iowa in '08, Hillary Clinton would be president now.
Finally, anything we should sort of expect the unexpected? Any surprises we might see coming out of Iowa? Anything that you're keeping your eye on?
I think it's just going to be great. It's always a surprise. I think there will be a fabulous moment when Ron Paul's supporters, if this happens, believe for a moment that he's going to be the next president of the United States. And that'll be a lot of fun to just sort of be around. I think, Mitt Romney could still crash and burn in Iowa, and he could still come in fourth. You never know. There's also, just who knows? Who knows? The stage has been set for weeks and weeks for a Rick Perry comeback, but he just keeps, just tripping over his own feet. You never know. There's sort of Perry always had this sort of basic story to tell that was in some ways stronger than anybody else's. So you could imagine a Perry revival. I don't know. I hope there's some surprises.
Well, it's always interesting. And you'll be there, I assume?
Yeah, January 1st. I'm leaving New York at 6 a.m. on the charter, the BuzzFeed charter.
All right. Well, you are the incoming editor-in-chief at BuzzFeed, and Ben Smith, thanks so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.